similar. Would you agree that when the Maine Supreme Judicial Court, sitting as the law court, issues an opinion on involving the Constitution of the state of Maine, that decision is binding upon every citizen of the state of Maine?
I would suggest that if it was a bad opinion that was completely the opposite to what the Constitution actually reads, then I personally wouldn't think it had merit.
Now, the second question, if the Supreme Court of the United States interprets the Constitution of the United States, including the Bill of Rights, as they have done recently, two cases involving possession of firearms, would you agree or disagree that that decision becomes the law of the land?
I would state that Jefferson and Madison wrote extensively about how the states are the parties to the Constitution, who ratified the Constitution, and have just as much a right to interpret the Constitution as anyone in the federal government does.
Would your position then be that the decision of the Supreme Court of Marbury versus Madison is an error?
I'm only I don't recall all the details of Marbury versus Madison. You'd have to refresh my memory on that.
The case had to do with the right of the Supreme Court to be the sole and final interpreter of the Constitution of the United States and acts of Congress.
I would say very much so, and many of the founding fathers vehemently disagreed with that at the time. These were the people who wrote the Constitution. I mean, we can get into a whole constitutional law discussion. I think that might be getting off track from where we are, but if those questions that come up, I mean, I think the opinions of our founders many of our founders who drafted the Constitution were very clear on that.
Thank you.
Senator Androscoggin.
As a member of the Judiciary Committee for 6 years, you would really hate my interpretation of your Constitution.
I'm sure we would have some.
So being that there's three branches of the government, that's
Well,
why.
over here someday, I'm sure we'll
Jefferson
hammer it out.
and wanted to see those three
You had a
branches.
question for
I
Senator?
do have a question. I want to just make a statement first because I can't imagine anybody challenging the Supreme Court. But be that as it may, do you have any idea? Do you know how many people have been refused a concealed weapons permit in the state of Maine, either last year or in any year?
I don't have those numbers with me. What I will say, however, is a right delayed is a right denied. I know there's going to be someone who comes before us later today, a former legislator, who's going to talk about an instance where he had a credible death threat made against him. His concealed permit was expired at that point, and it took 6 months for him to get that permit renewed. And during that time, he would have been someone who is a trained, capable gun owner, that person had to wait 6 months in order to be able to defend themselves in the event that the person who made this death threat tried to make that credible.
I think there's going to be testimony that's going to dispute that. Anytime there's an emergency, this committee has always made sure, has insisted that we have a process in place that immediately gets them a concealed weapons permit. So that's going to be translated with other testimony. But you do realize that Maine is not the second lowest, not the third lowest, but the lowest state in the country for incarceration per thousand. That we do actually live in the safest state in the union.
Absolutely, that is great news.
4,000 people. But if you understand that.
Absolutely, that is wonderful news.
That is wonderful news that we've had for a long time. Now, getting back to your bill. And knowing that if we do away with the concealed weapons permit process.
Well, and we're keeping the process in this bill. We're just making it optional.
Right, so we're going to give the people that cannot pass the background check, people that were denied one this year from numerous agencies, denied one last year, to now have a process to just go out and carry it because they're not going to need it. The people that actually can apply and actually pass it, you're leaving an avenue for them. So we're going to take care of the person that has been denied, at the same time taking care of the person that wants to get the permit. It seems to me like you're making the Wild West here in the East.
I would strongly contest that. As I said before, anyone who is currently prohibited from owning and carrying a firearm would still be prohibited from owning and carrying a firearm. And someone who is prohibited who knows that they're prohibited, who goes out and wants to have a gun anyway in order to commit a crime, is not going to let the fact that they don't have a permit stand in their way.
Are you going to draw a difference between being allowed to own a firearm and carry a hidden gun? Because some people are being turned down from carrying the hidden gun, but not being turned down from owning a weapon. Do you not distinguish the difference between the two of those?
I would need to see specifically what the standards are there. All I will say is that an individual who is currently prohibited from owning and carrying a gun, a handgun, again, this only deals with handguns. A person who's currently prohibited from owning and carrying a handgun would still be prohibited from owning and carrying a handgun.
Okay, if I might now, just one more question. If anybody wants to go out and buy a gun, they can go to a gun store, they go through the background check in 90 seconds. If they have no, if they haven't broken any laws or if they haven't committed any crimes, that's a fact of life, that's the Constitution. You haven't misbehaved terribly, you can own a gun. But that doesn't mean that you can carry a hidden gun. I'm drawing a distinction between those two. I don't think that you're following.
I think we just have a fundamental disagreement. I don't think that the difference between being a law-abiding citizen and being a criminal should be whether or not you have a jacket on.
Or a purse.
Representative Warren.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Point of order, this may be a total rookie move, and if it is, excuse me, I think it's really important that we have a distinction between a public hearing and a work session. Everyone in this room that's been elected has hundreds of people out there to testify, and I want to hear from them. We'll be here to work this bill. Now is not the time to argue about this bill. Now is the time to hear from the sponsor, to hear from legislators that are here, to hear from all of those people that traveled. And I just want us to really enforce that rule today. We're going to be here long enough, and the people that traveled here today are going to be here long enough. And I really want to hear from them.
My question, Senator Brakey, is do you own a gun?
Yes, I do.
I want to respond to this, Mr. Brakey. I'm a legislator on this committee. I get to ask all the questions I feel pertinent to the sponsor of the bill. The work session is completely different. The work session is when the committee works. But right now, I'm asking questions in public to get public response from the presenter of the bill. And it's not a freshman mistake. It's a little frustration maybe that I'm dominating the microphone, but I'm also dominating the time on this subject because I've been had more hearing of this bill than anybody else.
I would be happy to point out that I will make myself available for the work session.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All set.
All right, thank you very much.
Are there any co-sponsors that would like to speak in support of this bill? Representative Garrett, welcome.
Good afternoon, Senator Rosen. Representative Call evidently has stepped up for a moment. I'm Representative Stacey Guerin from Glenburn. I represent District 102. And I am happy to be here as a co-sponsor of LD652. I certainly believe in our Second Amendment rights, as do many of the people in the rural district that I represent. Today, I'm going to use as my testimony the testimony of a 30-year veteran in my district who had to work today, but who was very concerned that his positions be made known, and where they mirrored mine, I thought that would be appropriate. And I had talked to the chairman about combining a number of bills to save time, and she thought that's a good idea. So there we go. Reading from his testimony. I'd like to begin by thanking the committee for this opportunity to voice my opinions and concerns with regard to several bills to be discussed here today. I would also like to thank Representative Stacey Guerin and Senator Andre Cushing for their support. Maine and America needs more like that. My name is Tim Clark, and I'm a veteran of nearly 30 years, the final 15 of which I served as a full-time technician as a maniac with the 101st Air Refueling Wing in Bangor. I'm a longtime resident of Maine. When I first enlisted, and each time I re-enlisted, I swore an oath, as you have all, to support and defend our Constitution. This oath was not to any person or government. It was to the nation, to the people we serve. In order to honor my oath, which I believe has no expiration date, I wish to make my thoughts and concerns known to you about the bills set for discussion today. Let's begin with LD 115, an act to promote the safe use and sale of firearms. Why do we need another law that makes the sale or transfer of a firearm to a restricted person illegal? Currently, it is illegal under the Maine and federal law to knowingly sell a firearm to a person who is a prohibited person. Likewise, it is a felony under Maine and federal law for a prohibited person to buy, own, or possess a firearm. If stiffer penalties are desired, then simply amend the current laws we already have. How many illegal transfer incidents can the committee cite, much less any that resulted in violence? And further, do you really think it will stop a criminal from obtaining a firearm who is bent on violence? LD 415 is a redundancy we simply don't need and is a waste of the committee's valuable time and the taxpayers' hard-earned money. I respectfully ask the committee to vote no on this bill. LD 548, an act to provide a concealed handgun permit for active military members. Clearly a no-brainer, says my constituent. Our military members perform their duties in an exemplary manner day after day. If they are considered trustworthy enough by various military branches to go into combat and put their lives on the line for us, they should be considered trustworthy enough by their home state to carry a concealed firearm at home. I think all veterans should receive the same consideration. Honorable service would make issuance automatic. I respectfully ask the committee to vote yes on this bill. LD 652, an act to authorize the carrying of concealed handguns without a permit. There are currently 5 states in the U.S. that do not require a concealed carry permit. Kansas just recently became the 5th state. One of them is our neighbor to the south, Vermont. In none of these states do we hear tales of Wild West shootouts in the streets, as some groups would like to think will occur should we pass this legislation into law. Actually, quite the opposite is the case. In fact, these states and other states with high firearm ownership are considered to be among the safest to live in. No one has ever had anything to fear from a law-abiding citizen carrying a firearm, whether it be open carry or concealed carry. And lest we forget, criminals care nothing about the law and will not obey any laws. Criminals will do as they want with no regard to the law. I respectfully ask the committee to vote no on this bill. LD 823, an act to upgrade the concealed gun handgun permit law. This is an excellent piece of legislation that would actually serve to further standardize the issuance process by having only one agency involved in the investigative and issuance process. Further extending the duration of the permit from 4 to 10 years will help ease the burden of an already overtaxed issuing authority. And let's keep in mind that generally speaking, only law-abiding citizens would apply for a concealed handgun permit anyway, so changing the term to 10 years simply makes sense. I would add that I hope the state police will receive additional funding for additional personnel, which would enable them to meet the currently posted processing times. The extremely high demand for permits makes this impossible at the present time. I respectfully ask the committee to vote yes on this bill. And lastly, LD 868, an act to remove limitations on reciprocity for concealed handgun permits. I wholeheartedly agree with this bill. As I'm sure the committee is aware, there are also bills in the House and Senate to approve national reciprocity. LD 868 would be a positive step in that direction, and I would ask our legislature to also change the wording of the bill to allow any concealed permit from any state be recognized whether their home state reciprocates or not. Let Maine take the lead. I respectfully ask the committee to vote yes on this bill. I would like to thank each and every member of the committee for your time and patience. God bless America. Respectfully, Timothy Clark Levent.
Any questions for Representative Garrett? Senator Burns.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a correction, we were on LD LD652, you said vote no, and so I'm sure you mean yes.
I did mean yes. I respectfully ask the committee to vote yes on LD 652. And that was a mystery. Thank you, Firearms.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Any more co-sponsors for LD 652?
652.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Chairman Rosen and Chairman Paul. My name is Representative Jim Campbell, and I represent District 21, which is Alfred, Chapley, Limerick, Newfield, and Parsonsfield. And in opening, I want to say that I'm 81 years old and how impressed I am with the young man on his testimony and that. And it got kind of out of hand. It wasn't questioning, it was kind of badgering that he had to put up with. I hope he, as a freshman, he knows that this doesn't go on all the time. But I want to support him wholeheartedly. For over 20 years, I've had a permit to carry a concealed firearms in the state of Maine, and I have one in the state of New Hampshire. And of course, in Vermont, you don't need one. And I didn't know that until in my other life, I was in the printing business, and I retired at 56 years old. And I got a call to come over to Vermont and to train some young supervisors for about a month. And on a Sunday night, they had a room waiting for me over there. I packed up my suitcase, took my .38, loaded it up, took it with me, and headed to Vermont. Crossing over the bridge onto Route 5, I said, oh my God, I don't have a permit in Vermont. Next morning, I loaded the gun, separated it, went to the state police barracks on Route 5, and the girl said to me, can I help you? And I said, told her, she said, just a minute, out comes a big state trooper. And he looked at me and he said to me, you don't have nothing to worry about in Vermont, my friend. He says, we don't have any gun laws. He said, you can put a gun on the dashboard, you can put it under the seat, whatever you want. If you're a felon or you're a bad boy and you get caught, you wish you never came to Vermont. So, when this good senator that's not sitting there now kept calling it hiding, there's no such a thing as hiding. It's I can go buy a gun, strap it on, I got a permit, but if I didn't have a permit, and walk around with it, load it. But the bottom line is, when it gets pretty cold out there, and I put a coat on, I'm violating the law. So what we're doing is applying to the state police to be able to wear a coat because it's cold in the winter. Otherwise, it's only hiding when you're not supposed to be carrying a gun. If you're a felon or you have violated the law and you're not supposed to have a gun, you're going to wear a coat 4 months out of the year. So I praise this young gentleman for his bill, and I was really, really impressed with him. I think he's got a great future up here, and I wish him all the luck in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I hope you have any questions.
I hope
Good.
not to.
You got any questions?
We're good.
Seeing none.
Thank you.
Senator Rosen, Representative Fowler, Mike Shaw, I represent District 23, which is all of the land surrounding the southern end of beautiful Sebago Lake, Standish. Just a couple things. I am here as a co-sponsor in support of LD 652. And just back to the basics of the bill. The lawful people of the state of Maine want to do the right thing. So in regards to Senator Burns' question, I think people will. I actually think that the training aspect of this will increase. If people are allowed to carry their firearms concealed without the permit, I do believe they will take the real course, not just the permit course that Senator Brakey talked about, because they want to learn how to use the guns properly. They want to obey the law. I'm also, as you probably all know, the chair of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee, the House Chair. And generally when you're hunting, we do wear coats. And I found myself in a situation before I had my concealed carry permit, which I do have now. I found myself in a quandary of how to carry this very easily. In reality, what happened was I just couldn't carry the pistol. I would carry my rifle. We have to not bring my pistol with me. So if I had to carry my pistol openly for the day, if I wanted to go hunting, I couldn't. I just didn't bring it with me, quite frankly, because I couldn't leave it in the car, and I couldn't carry it on me because I was a jacket. There's nowhere where I could really put it. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I just want to reiterate that, you know, when you deliberate the bill and the work session, just remember that kind of the basic principle. The people that are obeying the law now are going to continue to obey the law, and the people that are breaking the law now are probably going to continue to break the law.
Any questions for Representative Shaw? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Senator Rosen, Representative Powell, and distinguished members of the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee. I'm Sheldon Hannington, representative for District 142, which consists of Town of Lincoln and the surrounding area. I would like to start by thanking you for the opportunity to testify before the committee to support 652. I will keep it brief due to the number of people that have come to the State House to testify this afternoon. The right to keep and bear arms is a fundamental right in the United States. In the Maine State Constitution, Article 1, Section 16, it clearly states, every citizen has a right to keep and bear arms, and this shall never be questioned. Maine citizens have a long history of responsible gun ownership. It is important that we protect this right. In his first annual message to Congress, George Washington said, a free people ought not only be armed, but disciplined, to which end a uniform and well-digested plan is a requisite. And their safety and intent require that they should promote such manufacturers as tend to render them independent of others. The right to keep and bear arms is necessary in order to maintain a statute of independence. Being a combat veteran of the Iraq and Afghanistan war and a life member of the NRA and a concealed weapon permit, we can't take it lightly. You know, there's no question we need responsible laws in the land. But I would like to ask this committee to keep in mind, as both legislators and citizens, outside influence affecting our state needs to stop. It is up to the Maine citizens to decide what is best for us. This is the reason why I urge the committee ought to pass LD 652, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Representative Hannington? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any co-sponsors on LD 652?
Thank you, Senator Rosen, Senator Powell. My name is Paul Davis, and I have the great privilege of being a state senator of the Maine Senate, and represent Senate District 4, which, in contrast to Senator Gasti's district, is very beautiful. We have Mount Katahdin, we have Moosehead Lake, we have Spectre. We have the Penobscot and Scampus rivers, where many of the fly rods and hunting rifles and different things that are bought in your district, Senator, are used. And if you ever wanted to,
You get yourself a motion, and you'll be right up with me.
if you ever wanted to come to my district, I would take you on a hike, and we'd have to have all day. I know that we would make it there. And we would use one of those fly rods that comes from LA.
As long as Molly can come, I'd love it.
Yes. I know you so far had a long day, you're going to have a longer day, and I'm going to be very brief with you on this. I have another bill coming up, but I spent 30 years in law enforcement. About 26 of those years, I wore a uniform. And I was either shift supervisor, or patrolman, the Maine State Police, Jackson Police Department, and the Newport Police Department, and Somerset Sheriff's Department. And never once, not one time, in the thousands of people that I stopped or came in contact with, did I have any idea in my mind of asking to see where they're going to come in. Not one time. Not one time that I can remember during all those years and all those stops can I remember a person offered to show me their gun permit. I approached every one of those people with the thought in mind that they might have a gun, and they just might shoot me. And I had to look out for myself. I support this bill. I see no practicality in us having this system, even though I'm going to propose some stuff in a few minutes. And that, Madam Chair, is about it. I strongly support the bill. I would like to see it passed.
Thank you, Senator Davis. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Are there any more co-sponsors on LD652? Anyone from the department who would like to speak on 652?
Good afternoon, Senator Rosen, Representative Fowle, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Criminal Justice and Public Safety. My name is Major Chris Rodman, and I'm here to represent the Maine State Police and the Department of Public Safety to testify in support of LD652. This initiative represents a shift in Maine's long-standing policy of concealed handguns by repealing the current requirement to possess a permit to carry a handgun in this manner. In order to consider a shift away from our current policy, it may be helpful to understand some of the realities and limitations of Maine's current concealed handgun permit system. Maine currently has an antiquated, inefficient, and inconsistent system with many problems. There is no process for an agency to check for previous denials when processing an application, allowing applicants to permit shop between departments. There's no central repository for data. Law enforcement cannot verify permits 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is no consistent format of a permit, making it virtually impossible to verify or validate a permit. Once issued, there is no consistent process to flag and suspend or revoke a permit for new criminal convictions, mental health commitment, or other reasons. For example, a person may obtain a permit, but later convicted or committed, involuntarily committed to a mental health institute, and the issuing authority may not know until the time of renewal. In terms of training, as discussed earlier today, there is no requirement for anyone to ever shoot a firearm as part of that training. It's a familiarity course. We understand the initial reaction to this concept. It's easy to feel that this is a step away from safety. This issue really requires us to closely examine what we are actually accomplishing with this program. The Department of Public Safety has long advocated for either improving the system or rethinking Maine's policy. One central question to consider is whether or not our current system is actually effective. The current permit process regulates people who are generally doing it right. I can only speak for the Maine State Police. I cannot speak for other law enforcement agencies that have their own experience. In the past 4 years, less than 0.1% of the 36,000 applicants to the state police are denied. Over the past 30 years, fewer than 20 people a year have been charged with carrying a concealed weapon of any type. Even when we deny their application, most of the time they are not otherwise prohibited from owning or possessing a firearm. You can still lawfully carry openly in all other places except where carrying a firearm is prohibited by law. Simply put, the existence of a permit does not impair or impact the ability of a person to purchase, carry, or possess a handgun. It is our opinion that law enforcement resources could be utilized in a more efficient manner, such as identifying those persons who are and will continue to be prohibited from owning or possessing a firearm, and effectively communicating that information amongst law enforcement agencies instead of regulating those that are generally compliant with the law. We have had some preliminary discussions with the bill's sponsor and look forward to continuing our work to resolve a few key issues with this proposal. Based on our understanding of the initiative at this time, I urge you on behalf of the State Police and the Department of Public Safety to support LD652. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Major Rotten? Representative Dedham.
Okay, so anyway,
Oh, Representative Davis, Mike.
I don't need one. So I heard you say there's a few
Generally, we're having discussions about the reciprocity aspect of Maine's current system and what impact that may have. We're also discussing the potential impact it may be on other government agencies and on business. We're also discussing potentially some safety issues that we may be able to work into the bill that would be helpful for law enforcement safety.
Follow-up? Yeah, I appreciate that. Now, as of right now, if my municipality, if they pick up a person and this person ends up having a concealed carry, their computer system in each of their vehicles is not communicating that to them. Is that correct, or is that just something on software or something that they can put in?
Let me make sure I understand your question. You're saying if a law enforcement officer in your community were to run someone's driver's license, for example, that were not able to determine whether or not the person has a permit? That's correct. There is no central repository, so therefore there's no one central database that anybody can access at any time, whether it's a law enforcement agency in Maine or around the country. That probably would need to simply look at their own individual records.
Senator Brzezowski.
Good afternoon.
Oh, I'm sorry. Senator Burns was next, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Senator Burns. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Senator. The question is, over the years, we've worked on two weapons permits. And whenever we found that we had a problem, and like used the backlog as an example, we addressed that in short order. Over the years, I can remember several big things that we found that had some problems, and we could work together, working out as a committee. You agree with that?
Yes, I do. In terms of the backlog, this was mentioned earlier, we do not have a backlog. We've eliminated the backlog. The reality is we've become much more efficient at processing these permits. The question really is the effectiveness.
Senator Burns, did you have a follow-up
I just
question?
have a follow-up on Richard Crossing, the States. I can remember when there was one either. I can remember when there was one for a long time, then we got up to two. Then all of a sudden we popped up to quite a few. That process was done by finding out what the differences were, then trying to amend ours. Did that happen?
That is accurate. Maine has a reciprocity agreement with 8 other states. And so that does involve, you're correct, it does involve the examination of each other's permit system to make sure that those standards are adequate. It's also my understanding that Maine's permit is perhaps maybe recognized by a number of other states, but those are not necessarily formal reciprocity agreements. That's one of those things that we're continuing to discuss with the involved parties to try to make sure we understand what impact this may have on reciprocity.
Senator Burns?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Major, good to see you, sir. I want to touch on the reciprocity thing also. You mentioned there is in the works discussions. Are we going to hear about those during the work session, or is this something that's going to come down the road in ways?
I believe those are discussions that will be taking place between now and the work session, and we'll hopefully be coming back to you with some more information either ourselves or the sponsor or one of those parties.
All right. First of all, I want to thank the agency for all that they've done to try to keep up with the process. They've done a great job catching up, I guess. If this bill were to pass and we institute a voluntary system, and we're told that that may very well increase the numbers, is the department, I don't say they're willing, because they do what we ask you to, I guess, but is the department in a position to move ahead with that, assuming that there's funding to support it, because reciprocity is probably going to be contingent upon that process.
That really is the strikes the substance of the discussions.
Okay.
And the reality is we have no idea what all of those numbers may be. Some states reportedly have seen an increase. I don't know what Maine's experience will be. Depending on how that's worded and what will be required, I think will provide us some direction, and hopefully we can make some projections on what it would cost in terms of resources and what the fiscal impact would be of continuing some type of a licensing program. That really strikes at the substance of the discussion.
I'll be patient, thanks.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on LD 652?
Good afternoon. Senator Rosen, Representative Fowle, and members of the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee. I am Representative Janice Cooper of House District 47, and I represent the people of Yarmouth, New Island, and Long Island. And what I'm about to say is very different from what you've been hearing previously. I am pleased to co-sponsor LD 415, introduced by my colleague, Representative Mark Dion, the former sheriff of Cumberland County. My comments today also pertain to LD 652, which I oppose. LD 415 is a modest bill, very modest. It seeks only to create a civil violation punishable by a fine for the sale or transfer of a firearm to a prohibited person. It further provides an affirmative defense if the seller requested a licensed firearm dealer to conduct a computerized background check on the intended buyer. That's it. That's all there is in that bill. Compare this to the bill we passed in the House and Senate in the last legislature. That bill would have prescribed elements for the firearm safety course provided by the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. It also included among those prohibited from possessing a firearm persons admitted to a psychiatric hospital on an emergency basis. The bill also increased the age for a concealed weapon, a handgun permit from 18